Hi everyone, it's Liam here from Rating the Races. So we've got the handicap marks out, and there's a few that have caught my eye. Some of those I have mentioned in the weekend review video, but we can now talk about where we actually think they're going to run with their new handicap marks. Starting off with Brentford Hope, who I said I don't think was actually given the best of rides by Paul O'Brien. I think he was far too confident. If he'd jumped the last, I think he would have won it, and he didn't jump the last and you know, it's that same old story with so many jockeys. They try and win it on the bridle, or they don't ask and they don't go 2-3 lengths up at the last. Go back and watch some of the videos of the Ruby Walshes, Tony McCoys, Richard Johnson, Mick Fitzgerald, Carl Llewellyn, all jockeys like that. And you'll notice that they push their horses into the last, and they're going for it, and they're going a length, 2 lengths clear at the last. If it goes wrong, and they stay on their feet, obviously some people I'm sure will come back with it didn't work with any power. If it goes wrong and they stay on their feet, they've made a mistake, but they're still in there fighting. You know, and potentially level, and when they get going again, they can battle back into the lead. But when you're doing it and you're still a length down and you're coming to the last and you make a mistake, suddenly you're 3 lengths down and you've lost all the momentum, and asking a horse to quicken at that point in the race is just crazy, and yet so many jockeys still do that. But anyway, so Brentford Hope, he went up £1 to 135 for that, and yeah, as I mentioned in my video yesterday, he's got to go for the Scottish Champion Hurdle. It's a feature handicap, it's over 2 mile. Interestingly, last year the winner was Rabaul, who we had highlighted a few times before winning the Scottish Champion Hurdle. Last year Rabaul won it off a mark of 135. Brentford Hope looks very, very similar in class and quality, and I think, yeah, a better ride. Maybe even Harry Cobden jumps on, because he might still be fighting for the jockey's title at that point. Yeah, put Harry Cobden on, and I'd be really confident of Brentford Hope going very close in the Scottish Champion Hurdle. Moving on to Arcoob, who the handicapper did not change his mark. He left him on 120, which isn't a surprise considering they were investigated, sort of. The poor display was questioned, and they said the trip plus the going didn't suit. Okay, I'm not totally sure I believe all of that. I thought it was just a very poor ride as well. I don't think Bryony asked for anything at all, and could have well finished a bit closer. Maybe they were hoping they could get away with dropping a couple of pound. It didn't work. I think there's an obvious race for this horse, and it's at Cheltenham, but not during the festival. It is this race here, the Kingston Stud Handicap Hurdle. It's 2.5 miles. Unlikely to be the top quality horses, likely to be better going. It's 2.5 miles. You know, they felt that 3 mile might suit Arcoob. 2.5 definitely would. Watch his run at Ascot, weaving through, running on strongly. Yeah, I would be confident of a huge run from Arcoob at Cheltenham on the 17th of April. We move on to Benson, who I don't think will be running at Cheltenham. I think it's foolish to run this horse at Cheltenham off the back of a really poor effort at Kelso, with only, 11 days and 13 days in between the races. Where do I think they should go with him? I think they should wait, and they should step him up in trip. And they should step him up for this race at Ayr, the Tennant's Handicap Hurdle over 2 mile 5. Its horse is rated 0 to 150. Benson dropped £1 to 138. That's only £2 higher than his last win, which came off, as I said, 136 over 2.5 mile in the north. I mean, it's pretty much the same in the north. 2.5 mile, slightly further than 2.5 mile. Off a £2 higher mark. I think Benson would go really well there, but I don't think he should be going to Cheltenham. Couple more for the hurdles. Russian Ruler dropped £2 to 120, which I thought was quite kind, considering I thought he travelled really well, to be fair, at Kelso. I do wonder whether he's getting that trip, and I would really be keen to find him a very, very easy 2.5 mile trip. And as I've mentioned before, Kempton is that. Kempton is an easy 2.5 mile or 2 mile 5, and there is this race, the read Nicky Henderson's exclusive Unibet blog. The Nicky Henderson is trained by Nicky Henderson. If they're squeaking at the bottom, I think Russian Ruler would have a massive chance in this race at Kempton, back over hurdles, now that he's shown a little bit of form last time at Kelso. And the final horse, who's dropped £3 to 133, and I thought this was there was a couple of interesting things here. Punctuation ran a really poor race at Newbury, but I thought it was interesting that Jack Hogan was on board, a conditional jockey, with bearing in mind what the last race he won over hurdles was. The last race he won over hurdles was back here at Aintree. If we just load this race up, wait for it to load, we'll see what type of race it was. It was a 2-mile handicap at Aintree for conditional jockeys and amateur riders, and Punctuation won it. That came off a £4 higher mark, £4 lower mark, sorry, a 129, now rated 133. But I thought the other part that was interesting was it was completely the wrong ride. Punctuation went forward when he's run his best races, arguably this one here at Aintree over 2 mile, and this race here at Cheltenham over 2 mile. He's been held up at the back and come through late. You know, 8th in a Greatwood hurdle, nothing wrong with that. I just need to change that in my write-up that goes with this. I put Betfair hurdle, it's the Greatwood hurdle. 8th in the Greatwood hurdle, nothing wrong with that. And winning at Aintree. The next 2 runs, they've been different. So Doncaster was too far, Newbury too prominent. Trying to get the weight down, they've got a race in mind, and I think it's returning for this race at Aintree. And if we look at this race at Aintree, Blue King Daru was second. Now that horse is rated £14 higher, has since won 2 races, and then even contested a graded race. That was a decent performance from Punctuation to beat Blue King Daru. And yeah, with that in mind, you've got to be thinking that Punctuation is going to be returning to Aintree at the end of the season on Friday the 12th of April off a £4 higher mark. With Jack now knowing how to ride the horse, I would be pretty confident of a very big run, to be honest. So they're the horses over hurdles. A Brentford Hope to the Scottish Champion hurdle, just needs a bit of a better ride. Arcoob drop in trip 2.5 mile to Cheltenham for the Kingston Stud Handicap hurdle. Benson needs to go up in trip to 2.5 mile. I think there's a race at Ayr that would suit him. Russian Ruler, I think, needs to drop in trip or find a very easy 2.5 mile trip. There is one at Kempton, and it's actually the Read Nicky Henderson's Unibet blog, which Russian Ruler is trained by Nicky Henderson, so that could be interesting. And finally, Punctuation. I thought the ride at the weekend was not a ride that was trying to win that race. They're trying to get his mark down. They got it down a little bit. They got it down 3. Will they be happy with just a £4 higher mark at Aintree? I think so, based on who they beat last year.